Yeah.
I'd like to call the East Ascension Drainage Meeting to order, February 11th, 2019. Mr. Turner, Mr. Dawson, and Ms. Terry. I don't know if he's stuck in traffic or he absent. We'll go on to invocation. Mr. Kluwat, follow by the
Everyone,
pledge.
please stand. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we ask that you continue to look over the residents of Ascension Parish in the Gulf South region. As we cross into the new year, we start looking and making preparations for the hurricane season. We ask that you keep everybody safe and out of harm's way. Lord, we have special prayers we ask for the Dufresne family, for the death of Mr. Freddie Dufresne. We also ask that you put your hand on the shoulder of the Kern family for the loss of their daughter, little Elizabeth Kern. And it's with special blessings and special prayers, we ask that you continue to look over the Ernest family for the loss of one of our own, Mr. Billy Ernest, and his family's loss. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Good deal. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. I'd like to bring the attention, we have to add 2 more items, and I apologize for this, but these came in Thursday evening late. The first one is a contract for construction. This would be for Salvo Road, Penny Street, Shealy Place, and Riverside Estates. Ms. Jones will give that. I'd like to move.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second. To add that to the agenda.
Okay, we'll add that to agenda item 7 to 8.
Look, before you do it, you gotta go ahead and open public
I'm
hearing
sorry.
on that.
Well, that's good. We got Ms. Terry here now.
And Mr. Bill?
And Bill, thank you. With that, I'd like to open the public hearing for this contract that we'll have for 7A.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Second to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All right, now you need to do a roll call vote to amend the agenda.
Mr. Dawson.
Well, I wasn't a part of this, but I'm gonna pass.
I figured you'd catch it on the way in there. But what it is the contract for the observation services for Salvo Road, Penny Street, Shealy Place, Riverside Estates. Ms. Jones will give that.
Yeah, and all y'all voting on right now is to take it up.
Oh, to take it up?
Yeah.
Oh, it's being added
It's
to
just
the
to
agenda?
amend it,
Okay,
correct.
I'll vote in favor of that.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Okay, with that, we have 7. I have one more here to add, and this would be for to amend the master contract between East Ascension Drainage for Timken Gear Service.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Second.
Motion to close.
Motion closed by Mr. Dock, second by Ms. Johnny.
Motion to add it to the agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second by Mr. Aaron Lawler, second by Mr. Randy Kluwat. And Mr. Ron Salvo would take this up also. These, I apologize, but these came in Thursday.
Randy, point of order, you need a roll call.
Just roll call that real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Mr.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. And I apologize, Miss Deborah She's sick tonight, and we're glad you're filling in for her. Thank you so much. That will be 7B. With that, we'll move on to number 4, the acceptance of minutes for the January 14th meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Sally, second by Mr. Lambert. There's no chairman's report. We'll move on to number 6, drainage report. Mr. Joey Turo and Mr. Ron Salvo.
I'll go real quick over the drainage work orders. In the month of January, we've got ditch maintenance work orders at 53 were completed in January. Things are moving along very well with the contractors in addition to the staff. We have several projects that we've been talking about that are actually have equipment on site now and under construction. Is the Fuller property on 431. They've moved all the material there and have started. Palmetto Street in Country Ridge, they had a road failure there and they mobilized to put box culverts in. We ran into a little bit of utility issues today, but they will be coordinating that with utilities and working that out. As in the report earlier sent out last week, if you got any questions about any of these, we'd be glad to take a look at them with you. The Swamp Road situation, we have material in, and we will probably start that Thursday. Hopefully, if everything continues as planned. Other than that, I will turn it over to Julie.
We have several consultants working for us now. HNTB is working under the levy certification contract. They gave, on February 7th, they gave a project update on the Ascension Parish Regional Flood Reduction Projects. She won't be able to, Melissa will not be with us tonight. She had some prior engagements, so as far as any details, she will make a presentation at the next drainage meeting. She did report that the rules that HUD are to come out with should come out towards the end of February. And the other work that HNTB is doing for us is going to be addressed under item 15 in this regard. We have 2 contracts with HNTB, and they're going to be addressed under those 2 items later in the program. BKI is working on 2 sets of plans for the Marvinboro pumps. Both should be completed within the next several weeks. They will be presented to this board to see if we want to pursue construction, the implementation of those plans. Bryant Hammett and Associates has been working on the drainage improvement project for Savoy Road, Penny Street, Shealy, and Riverside Estates. Low bids were submitted. Hard Rock is the winning bidder. It was approved by the Drainage Board this past meeting, January 14th. Final contracts have been signed now. A notice to proceed should come forth in the next week or 2. That's why it's important to have that observation item that's going to be presented tonight so that we can have the inspector on board for the meeting, for the pre-construction meeting and the resulting notice to proceed. Kimberly Cole is here with GSA, and I'm going to let her make the presentation for the two projects that GSA is doing for us. One is the Fish Bayou project, the other is the levee, and I'll let her come up and give you a report on both of those projects.
Good evening.
Welcome.
I'll start with the most exciting one, which is the levee. We were authorized to jump back onto design for that due to that agreement that was signed last month between Livingston, Ascension, and the Pontchartrain Levee District. So we've had a few inter-office meetings about kicking off the design phase, also with some of our sub-consultants to make sure that we have all the information we need to execute some construction documents. We've had meetings with our design team regarding construction documents and plans, so we're moving along with that.
You wanna finish up with Fish, or you wanna take questions on each one?
Whatever y'all would prefer.
Mr. Kluwer?
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. Moving toward design, what is the schedule for that? What do you see?
We did submit a schedule this month with our update, so you should have a copy of it, but we're looking at the 8 months for design. We should have a better idea of that. We're hoping to get it sooner than 8 months, because I know we're pushed back so far, but 8 months, so hopefully around October, we'll be ready to advertise.
Okay, what about land acquisition?
PLD's been moving along with that. They just haven't pulled the trigger with actually acquiring. They do have all of their abstracts together, so they should be able to execute that quickly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess with that, I'll tune in, because I really appreciate all the press. I want to thank the past president, everyone that was involved with getting everyone to the table to sign this, because it just feels good to start talking about a project that should have been done a long time ago. So it's looking real good. Thank you.
Thank you. And then for Fish Bayou, still moving along permitting. We have come to an agreement of sorts with the landowner regarding servitudes that are going to be required for the structure. So we've modified our permit applications and are submitting that to Wildlife and Fisheries for the scenic river permit. We did have that on public notice, and that's already been complete. We've responded to a few comments as well, so once we get these revised drawings in and they're reviewed, we're hoping to get our scenic permit soon. And then, once we get that permit, we'll be able to jump back in with the Corps. The Corps is waiting for this permit to continue with their evaluation, but we're moving along.
Ms. Terry?
I've met privately with Kimberly, I'm aware. Kimberly, is there any projected date about which you might just give us something as far as acquiring a permit? Is this something that's going to happen this year? Is this something that's going to happen
I would
mid-year?
think this year, definitely. Again, we have the 214, and this was the first project with it, so this is really going to let us see how long it's going to take, but I think a lot of the work's been done. They did put it on public notice. They have started technical review. This was one of the public comments that Wildlife and Fishery needed a permit for the scenic river permit. And once we get that permit, I'm hopeful that it'll move quickly, and then we'll jump into wetland mitigation, which is very minimal on this project. I think it's less than an acre.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
You've really done a fantastic job, particularly with the landowners, and they are grateful for your help. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Any other questions for GSA? Any questions for Ron and Joey?
I got a quick question for Ron.
Thank you.
Mr. Kluwer?
Ron? Yep. Yeah, we see the good progress on the roadside ditches, appreciate that. How are we doing on the back ditches? We have several ditches in the Santa Monica area that, they'd had calls on for the past year or so, a couple months. Do we have crews that are available for that?
Yes, absolutely. Councilman, appreciate the comments. That is the most challenging part of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would like to take it as we are breaking down everything we can for as work orders and services that we provide, and are trying to execute and turn over everything that we can efficiently and quickly. With your roadside ditches, you can work pretty much any time. So you're seeing the ability to control that and respond quickly. When you get into the off-road ditches, you have a lot more coordination. Do we have crews allocated for that? Absolutely. But you're dealing with multiple landowners on every work order.
Mhm.
And you have to have a drainage servitude on everyone's property. So it does take a lot more effort through multiple divisions within Public Works to actually execute a off-road work order. So that is where the bulk of the time frame that you see of people calling is. And I would say definitely we have crews dedicated to it all the time. It's just the most challenging part of our job is the off-road work.
Do you need help on these right-of-ways, you know, servitudes?
We have.
I mean, I know I got one ditch where you fought somebody, you know, you kind of had to go back and forth for about a year and a half.
Right.
You know?
I mean, far as the execution and preparing of the document and getting it signed, that's the easy part, is getting the landowner to agree to do it. We don't have a whole lot of leverage on making them donate the servitude, and that's your issue. So help would, I feel like we're staffed to address all the ones that come up. It's just a matter of getting everyone to agree to get the servitudes and actually get from one scope of the project to the other executed. And that has to be willingness on all parties that own the property. So that's, to me, it's not really a staffing right-of-way issue. It's the ability to obtain it from all the landowners willingly.
Well, like I said, I understand that, and we fought that for years, but I mean, you know, we're talking about existing ditches that we've cleaned on the parish has taken care of for years and years, so. So in other words, through the years, I mean, I know you're younger, but you've been with us for a while. So what we did, we just went, you know, all these years, we just went bag them each time to let us clean the ditch, or what?
Since
We're talking about well-established ditches, you know, so.
when we get a work order, the first thing we do is assign it to right-of-way to check the clerk of courts, was anything ever filed legitimately as a servitude. And sometimes you didn't get the accurate records for filed at clerk of court. So you have to get that to actually get a recorded servitude on these ditches. And that's the challenges that we're having. We are working every servitude that we get this day. We have a GIS layer. Ms. Deborah does a very good job with her division in doing that. They upload every servitude that we get to a GIS layer for the future, that people will be able to tell where we do and do not have the servitudes. That is a challenge that we face every day.
All right, well, I'm gonna get with you.
Yes, sir.
Here, you know, on a couple of ditches, and
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that they've been worked by the parish for well over 20 years,
Yes, sir.
you know, so.
I'd be more than glad to look at it with you
Yeah.
and seek
If
advisement.
you're
from
holding
legal.
up somewhere else because you're waiting on servitude, I would think that we got servitude here.
Well, we'll definitely be glad to take a look at it with you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions or on the drainage report? If none, you finished, Joe? Y'all okay? We'll move on to number 7, approval to proceed with bidding. While you're standing there, Ron, we're going to number 7. H. Davis Cole.
Yes, I'd like to bring up Davis Cole to do a presentation on this item of approval to proceed with bidding a New River Project Improvements Project as recommended by staff and Davis Cole. We'd like to hold that until after their presentation.
Sure.
We'll go from there.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you all again. My name is David Martin. We've met before. I work with H. Davis Cole and Associates. We've been working with Ron and Joey in the Public Works Department on the New River Channel Improvements Project. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation. Andre has some figures, some handouts that she'll be passing out for you. We also have some display boards that we'd like to show that would be a part of this presentation. So tonight, I'll talk a little bit about the rationale for the project, our concepts and strategy. We'll talk a little bit about the design and permitting status, the schedule and then recommendations for implementation, as well as our recommendation for proceeding to the bid phase. The first rationale for the project is to improve the drainage throughout the New River watershed. 18,000 acres in Ascension Parish are included in the New River watershed, and this encompasses quite a few council districts, as you can see on the map that we've provided. That's 27.5 square miles. We believe that the impacts of this project will be felt in quite a few council districts, as well as the city of Gonzales. And in speaking with Ron and Joe, we believe that the impacts of this project will be felt as far to the west and to the north as Dutchtown, and even into the industrial areas along Highway 30 and Highway 74. Part of this project, or the goal of the project, will be to improve retention capacity in the watershed by removal of material from the canal. Since New River is not a natural drainage course anymore due to the Marvin Bro Drainage Pumping Station, every drop of water that falls into the watershed will wait in line to be pumped out. So one of the goals of this project is to give that water a space to wait in line while it's waiting to be pumped out at the Marvin Bro Drainage Pump Station. We'll be improving the channel profile consistency to make it more consistent. We have a figure that we'll show in a little bit that shows how the channel goes up and down, has high and low spots. A large part of the project will be removing the weir downstream of Highway 61. We'll also be improving the consistency of the slide slopes for more cost-effective maintenance. And one of the things that we'll talk about also is armoring of the outfalls, where all the drainage pipes outfall into New River. We'll also be including riprap at bridges to stabilize bridges and reduce erosion. The project will remove 60,000 yards of material for increased storage. We'll also be removing some bank obstructions for increased water storage. The parish actually has a permit to remove up to 135,000 cubic yards of material. But in speaking with Public Works and Ron and Joey, we feel that 60,000 is a nice number to remove as far as balancing our desire to keep the slope gentle enough to where it can be maintained by conventional equipment. As we said previously, a major goal of this project is to improve the channel profile consistency. As you can see here, it goes up and down throughout the project area. We'll be removing this weir here to allow for increased storage. Anything that's behind the weir on a normal day just simply cannot be pumped out by Marvin Bro Drainage Pumping Station. So removing this weir itself will increase your retention capacity, but also we'll be removing material from the channel to do so. We'll be straightening these side slopes to make them all consistent. They'll be easily maintainable by the Ascension Parish equipment that they have on hand. This is a photo here of the Kansas City Southern Rail Bridge. We're seeing some erosion under the bridges, so part of this project aims to stabilize those. There are some hydraulic benefits, including the riprap, but it's also to offset the dredging that we're doing under the bridges to protect the foundations. We'll also be armoring all of the outfalls. You see in these photos here that some of these outfalls are in pretty bad shape. You have inconsistent holes and little ravines and gullies that have created themselves over time. We'll be repairing all of these and armoring them with riprap. It'll be a lot more aesthetically pleasing. It'll be a lot easier to maintain. It'll be less of a hazard. You won't have an opportunity for a little kid to walk along and fall in one of these holes. The project will extend from New River Weir to Smith Valley. As you can see, the shaded blue area is the city limits of Gonzales. So this project will impact the city of Gonzales as well as the unincorporated areas of the parish. And Ms. Jackie is here tonight in support of the project. We've been working with her very closely on making sure that her concerns have been addressed from a drainage standpoint and with the bridges that the city owns. As we've talked about before, we'll be creating a consistent cross-section. It will look something like this. The width of the channel will vary, but it's important to note that we're keeping everything within the existing right-of-way to avoid having to acquire new servitude. We are At 100% design, we held a plan-in-hand meeting with Joey and Ron and some other parish personnel about 2 weeks ago, and we're currently addressing their comments from that plan-in-hand. The anticipated water depth is important to note, and I'm glad I caught this, will be 2.5 feet along the 2.7 miles of the project. The water surface elevation will be maintained by Marvin Bro Drainage Pump Station as opposed to the weir. In terms of permits, our jurisdictional determination has been completed by the Corps. Our permit from the Corps is off notice, so we interestingly received no public comments that were antagonistic towards the project at all. We've been working very closely with DOTD. They're awaiting some means and methods restrictions that we'll be including in the construction contract. The construction contractor will actually have to work with DOTD to satisfy their concerns, but they've been very clear that they don't anticipate any issues with approval of the project. We're currently negotiating with Kansas City Southern Railroad. Their initial opinions of the dredging have not been favorable. We're currently working with them to reduce the amount of dredging under their bridge and under their bridge only so that we can achieve our goals and still alleviate their concerns. We believe that including riprap under their bridge will be a net benefit to them, and that is what we're trying to convince them of at this time. We've been working closely with Jackie and Gonzalez for permitting. They do have several bridges that cross over the project, and we've anticipated no issues with those. That being said, our 100% design documents we expect to be complete by the end of February. Construction could begin between 90 and 120 days after an authorization to proceed to bid phase. Typically, it takes 30 to 45 days to bid. You guys are quite familiar with this whole timeline. And we anticipate the construction time to be between 12 and 15 months, maybe a little less depending on the breaks that we get and when we actually start the project. If we build this during the rainy season, it may be a little more time intensive to construct. So our recommendations for implementation, the cost opinion is $4.2 million. In speaking with Public Works, this project is currently fully funded in the 2019 capital projects budget. Accordingly, we're jointly recommending construction of the entire project in one construction contract. We believe that we can capitalize on the economy of scale by involving one construction contractor and not having to pay multiple mobilization fees. So in summary, we're near 100% complete. We're nearing completion with all of our permits, and we are requesting authorization to move forward with bids. At this time, I'll take any questions that you all may have.
We'll start at the end down here. Mr. Bell.
Thank you. So, what's the benefit? We did a cost-benefit analysis. We're going to spend $4.2 million. What are we going to get in return?
You'll get a noticeable improvement.
No, I'm talking about dollars. What's the benefit?
I can't answer that in dollars specifically. That would be something that we would have to confer with Public
So
Works.
we originally were going to do this. How much does it cost just to take the weir out? Didn't we look at that?
We think that the removal of the weir could be in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $100,000, just off the top of my head.
50 to 100. So I'd like to see what. So we're leaving us with $4 million additional, and what's the benefit of that?
I can't speak to a dollar amount specifically without some additional study. That would be something that I think would be inappropriate for us to commit to without looking at closer. We can confer with DPW on that and discuss that further. And William.
So one of the things that we looked at, Councilman, was what would have flooded if this project would have been done with 60,000 cubic yards of fill, and it would have alleviated a tremendous amount of flooding in the district. So, I mean, we could go in and calculate what the value of that flooding cost the parish to do that. We didn't do that for this project in particular, but it's something that can be done. But the project would have a tremendous impact on all of the homes further up in Bayou Gadine and all the way to the Marvin Bro pump station.
So I don't know, we'd have to look at it, but when we originally looked at this, the weir was what we were told before, the weir was the majority of benefit that we got from flooding reduction. But myself, You know, unless I can see what the
If you look
benefit
at the-
is of spending an additional $4 million on top of 100,000.
Look at the,
I'd
ch-
like
I mean,
to
look
see
at the
what it
channel,
is.
look at the channel profile, Councilman. I mean, you can see that even if you take the weir out, there's still all sorts of natural impediments to the water flowing to the Marvin Bro Pump Station. And so, to get the maximum benefit, you're gonna have to clean out, you know, the channel. I mean, it's just.
Well, I don't deny
it's a
that. I'm
dredging
just
project.
saying, I don't know what the benefit is. To spend $4 million, do we get $4 million in return at least?
I would say absolutely, but that's something that, as you might be aware, is a little difficult to calculate. I mean, you're going to talk about a 25-year flood, a 50-year flood, a 2016 flood. I mean, what parameters do you want me to use to calculate this?
Well, you can look at all of them, or you can pick one out
All
for
right.
me.
Finished?
Yeah.
Mr. Turner?
Thank you.
No questions with it.
I know we had another. Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, with, yeah, you talked about the flood. Actually, William, I was kind of listening to what you said, Mr. Daniel, I'm sorry. Talking about the flooding and how much we would save on that, or how many people we'd have to figure that out. Are we talking about the 2016 flood, that people would not have flooded? Or is this just in general? Do we
No,
have
there
every?
is, you take 60,000 cubic more yards of space that we could have occupied, and water would not have gone into some houses. Yes, sir.
Like in the 2016 flood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It reminds me of fill, quite honestly. Removing a lot of fill would have saved a lot of that.
Well, it's dredging, and so you increase the capacity of to hold more water, and you are able to get the water out faster.
One of my thoughts, though, is that, from everybody that I've spoken with, guarding against the 2016 flood is not feasibly done because of the cost. It just can't be done. I know that I've got an area in my district that floods all the time. We were just talking about it. So Westlake Drive, Spring Lake Drive, on a normal rain.
It's kind of like guarding against the 2016 flood is kind of like designing your transportation system for rush hour.
Yeah, and we can't do that. But I guess that's my point is, are we doing this to guard against the 2016
No,
flood?
sir. This is a great project. It moves water in a very large floodplain in the parish. It will benefit thousands of residents of Ascension Parish by allowing the water to get out faster. It will drastically improve our ability to maintain these, because right now we can't get our mowers down there. We're going to improve the dock so that we can get our boats in the water to more effectively control vegetation. It's just the project has numerous benefits from flood control to saving money on maintenance to allowing us to control the vegetation, to safety aspects. You saw the pictures of the pipes that were ditches out there. We'll take care of all that. So there's a safety component of this project as well. It's just like I say, it's a multi-component project that's very favorable to all to many residents of Ascension Parish. If they would put that map back up, you can see what a big area that it affects.
Thank you.
Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions. One of them is to Mr. Daniel, and the other one, I guess, goes to H. Cole Davis. In the meeting we had, William, I caught the tail end of it, but from what I did understand, it looked like, especially looking at the map, which you all looking at the time of the profile schematic of the New River Channel, I would have thought going into it blindly, which I was, that we wouldn't get any benefit in D4. But for the record, you all actually told me it's going to reduce floodwaters by certain amount of inches. Would you care to comment on that again?
Well, I don't know the exact amount of inches. I'll leave that to the experts, but it will help your district. Bayou Gadine flows into this, and it backs up into New River when New River's high. So cleaning out this channel will help that. And in fact, Phase 2 of the project is also looking at Bayou Gadeen to see if we can improve it as well. So I think Ron or Mr. Martin.
So Mr. Danny, before you go, so when you made a comment earlier that and I'm going to quote, you said it'd be tremendous value to the houses further upstream to the Bayou Gadeen. I took that as certainly talking to my constituents. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Tremendous value.
Well, Ron can speak to this in more detail, but there's a ridge or deposit in Grand Gadeen that actually DPW identified.
Yeah, we went out and looked at the, just out of curiosity, to compare to the profile of New River. What does it look like at the intersection of Bayou Gadeen, which drains your district? And Grand Gadeen was roughly 4 to 5 foot deep in areas, and New River was roughly 1.5 to 2 foot deep.
Yeah, that was the numbers I wanted into the record.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, there's definitely a silt deposit, and I don't think that's the dispute here, but it would be definitely a dredging project that could significantly help the flow of the water towards
Yep.
the Marvin Road.
And while you're there, Ron, if you don't mind staying, the other question I asked at that meeting was, obviously, you can look at the map, too. A good part of this in the shaded areas that are affected throughout the full channel goes through the city of Gonzales. And my concern then, and continues to be, although you laid that to rest to me by, and for the record, maybe you'd explain, that's not an unincorporated area. What is their financial participation? And your answer then was and is tonight?
They are contributing to the millage of the drainage tax, and their portion would fund their participation in that project.
And so the feeling at the parish level is because of that, I don't know if I want to use the word, we're not obligated to do anything, frankly, but that it justifies what we're doing in terms of getting the correct slopes and so forth of that channel as it runs through the incorporated areas of Gonzales.
Yes, it will help with channel maintenance on the side slopes and routine maintenance there in the future. There's several bridges in that area along this construction site that routinely will catch trees and limbs and brush on the pilings, and we're looking at improving the area, that spot where we possibly can utilize us putting in our maintenance boat. And currently, we can't get a boat upstream of the weir from the Blanches downstream, so this would help us to maintain all of those bridges in that area.
And that's a perfect segue to my third and final question. My ears kind of went up a little bit. This I didn't talk about in the meeting. To quote the speaker tonight, the railroad apparently wants us to, did I catch that right, to reduce the amount of dredging we really want onto their, the KCSSR bridge. I'm curious, how deep is it under there right now, under that bridge? And if they get their wishes, and I realize how hard it is to deal with the railroad. I've dealt with them before in my district, in the Seven Oaks area, just trying to get property with their railroad ties and stuff, everything off so that we could clear trees in a drainage servitude. But they get their way, and it actually, quote, reduces the dredging. Is that going to cause a logjam there, or is there anything more? Can we as a council do anything that would, a resolution or something and say, hey, look, guys, we're going to spend 4-point-something million. You're just one part of many different log jams. If we give you assurances or whatever that we're not going to mess up your foundation of your railroad bridge, and we do the right thing.
In speaking with them, they've been
Less than cooperative?
They haven't been as forthcoming. The way we would like to have a conversation is not us presenting different options and them saying no, no, no every time until we settle on what they ultimately will allow. We were talking about it earlier today in reviewing the elevations. If they get their way, as you said, we think that it's not a showstopper. Their concern is more about the side slopes and what we're doing on the abutments of their bridges. We can reduce that and still obtain the grades and elevations that we want to obtain.
That's the part I wanted to hear. We can still have the channel deep enough through there to where it doesn't defeat all
Yes,
the
there are some
southern
adjustments that we can make in the way that we align the channel and shape the channel to benefit, or not necessarily benefit them, but to alleviate their concerns. That being said, we would wish that they would hear our entire proposal. Where we've tried several avenues to try to have them come to the site. We'd like to proceed with that before I think we go any
When you're
further.
talking to them, are you talking to their engineers? or you
We're
just-
talking to their engineering department, and then we have talked with some of their right-of-way consultants, but I don't, if there was somebody local, we could probably have a more productive conversation. We've tried. We just haven't been able to succeed in that as of yet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cloyd?
Yeah, a couple quick questions. I guess I've been around since the start, the last start of this conversation, which we did have a local firm that looked at this, and, you know, at that time, we were talking about removing the weir, even talking about putting gates on the weir. There were some preliminary numbers came in, and that's what some budgets were set at. You know, and since this, and, you know, before you, Ron, it was under Mr. Rue's administration that you guys came in, and, you know, now we're looking at, you know, $4.5 million project, okay? So, my district being downstream, you're trying to find about 1,000 good ways to get the water out quicker, okay? What's coming to me, all right? So, we know the canopy of New River is one of the hardest canopies around. There's trees all over it, things like that, downstream just like it is upstream. So I agree with trying to help people with flooding upstream. I don't have a problem with that. I got another question. Within this total design, I didn't look at everything on it. There was some talk in here several times about within the city limits of Gonzales, of putting some little nature trails and docks and things like that. Is any of that in here?
No.
No,
Is
this is
any
strictly-
of that in here?
This is strictly a drainage project, Councilman.
Okay. Because you know, William, I think you had made it to the parish about at that time, and there was some talk before you came, but about putting a lower canopy, upper canopy, lower canopy for, you know, nature trails and things like that.
Yeah, this is strictly a drainage project to help the drainage and help move water out of the parish faster.
Okay. Has any look been given with any flood stage, whether it's 25, 100 year, whatever, about, you know, we've been having this weir here forever, about we're releasing that water and what's it doing downstream, and what do we plan to do to handle that water downstream?
So I'd like to digress for just 1 second,
Sure.
and I'll let Ron answer that. Councilman Dawson, I apologize. I turned away because I was frustrated at myself, not at you. I just want to make that clear. But what I'm told is that there were cost-benefit analyses done on this, and I meant to bring them with me earlier, and I kind of forgot, so I was kind of mad at myself. But I'm not sure I'll even be able to find them. But they were done by a local engineering firm here when he just reminded me about that. So.
Yep.
But I'll try to find those for you, and again, I didn't mean any disrespect. I just was kind of frustrated with myself there, so. But I'll let Ron answer that.
I get mad every once in a while myself.
Well, I wasn't mad.
So, to say what we would, how we would handle it downstream, I don't think we're changing anything upstream. What we are doing is, before an event starts, the water elevations start lower. So basically, we're getting the original elevation of water back and creating capacity upstream. So prior to an event, we're not really bringing any more water to the areas downstream. It's already coming that way. It's just starting off at a higher level.
Yeah.
So basically, we are creating more capacity and removing obstructions from within the channel to improve the flow of water to the Marvin Bro station, and then possibly in the future going up the Goudin, the Bayou Goudin lateral ditches, the New River going back up to towards the Dutchtown area, the Geismar, all of that is already coming to Marvin Bro. We're not changing what's coming there or bringing more water or acreage that way, just improving the channel.
But you do agree that all these improvements from that weir on up will deliver the water faster to the Marvin Bro pump station?
I would think that if we continue to dredge further up into the Goudin, I think they would really need to look at the overall downstream effects. In the first phase of this, I think we're probably not changing a traumatic amount of water. But if you start changing all of the channels going all the way up through Prairieville up to 73 and doing the other phases of this, they may need to look at that. Is there anything needed downstream? But currently, we have seen in pumping events where we are maintaining the elevation at Marvin Bro, and we've got 2 or 3 pumps to spare at the station. But the water up in Prairieville is just not getting there.
Right.
And that's where we're seeing the problems. We can have Santa Monica in certain events, depending on when the pumps are turned on and how the management of the system goes from the get. But if you can keep up with an event before it gets here, you can keep Marvin Bro and Santa Monica area down, and you have problems in Prairieville because it cannot get to the
Understand.
pumps. That's kind of what we.
And I just want to bring the fact that the last weir that we removed, we ended up with a dry riverbed, ditch bed, whatever you want to call it, right off of Papera. And you had an outcry of people complaining about that. Okay, which I don't have a problem with.
Well,
Okay.
for the most part, we've had, I would say both. We've had a lot of people compliment that project and the fact that they're able to maintain their land all the way down to the water's edge.
That's right.
Then you've got some that were anti-project. You did have a few of those, but for the most part, we've got a lot of compliments on being able to maintain their land all the way to the water's edge.
And you talk about phase two. Phase two was brought up in here. So you have a phase. Is somebody currently working on that phase two, or that's just based on y'all good predictions of what you're gonna have to do next?
Nothing's been tested, nothing's been engineered. It's just that we foresee if we do this project, the other stretches of the upstream branches are right there, and you're putting a 2-foot cut in New River, removing silt. So you could potentially keep going. And then, we don't know what the Goudin's project would be. I think that's where the engineering would need to be tasked to look at all of that. What are the possibilities? Where can we go after this in the future? So, no, there's nothing been tested or engineered or even looked at yet. It's just, we know that doing this project, it could offer future projects if the board wishes to go that direction.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask that as you're moving forward, looking at this project, that you continue to look downriver at the cleanliness and
Yes, sir.
of New River.
I will say that we currently do have that boat crew implemented, and we are monitoring that every time we pump. Matter of fact, we rode last week in Mr. Dawson's district, kind of off topic, but we are able to go all the way up the Panama Canal through Conway, all the way by Pelican Point, and on through the railroad structures with our boats. So those crews are in the pumping events, riding our systems, New River included. And we currently are about to mobilize on another branch of Goudin with the shredder.
Yeah.
And so we did the lower branch of New River several years ago. Bill had them shred that out all the way to New River, to Marvin Bro, removing the trees and obstructions. We'll continue to do that.
Yeah, and my last comment is this started out would be a project, and of course some good insight, and looking at it grew and grew, but this is a pretty good magnitude of costs. Anyway, thank you.
Ms. Terry?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that it has grown and grown and grown, because I was initially certainly in favor of just pull that weir out of there. But as I was able to be convinced that my district would benefit from this project, then it makes it important to me that we continue to do this, and that we consider Phase 2 right away behind Phase 1. So that we have I would propose to you that if we're going to spend $4 million, we need to finish the job so that we have a real impact on both my district and Doc's and Travis's, where we share a boundary there at Cornerview and New River, where there are some relatively significant flooding that happens in a fairly common rain event. So, and my understanding is that to actually have an impact on that, we would need to get to Phase 2. Am I right, or would Phase 1 have some impact on that?
I think it's worth the engineering look at upstream. It's probably going to be some more complex projects than what this one was, but we're getting into budget phase in a few months, and we definitely will take the time to review those projects and recommendations from you all and keep that in mind when we develop in a budget for next year.
Thank you.
Phase one, Councilwoman, will certainly have some impact. Taking it further upriver is certainly going to complement the work done in phase one as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like Randy a little bit on this. I've always believed in starting from the lower end and going up. I know we did some snagging on the lower end, but I don't think we did any dredging. You still can walk across the canal in different spots, you know, when the canal's low. We're running into that problem already. So as far as beautification of it, when we stop it where we're stopping at, which is right there in Weber City at the weir, the rest of it's going to look, you know, it's going to be a beautiful canal until we get to that point. And what is the, I guess, the chances of us going any further as far as permitting also? Because I know it's going to be permanent because we got trees on both sides of the canal. Like Randy said,
It's got a heavy canopy.
It's
the
yeah.
worst canopy that we gave out.
The canal, they got a lot of bridges that's low, and they got a lot of silt in on that, you know. So if we get too much coming forward, I know it takes about 4 hours right now once we get our pumps on to see water moving on the northern end, which this will make it come faster. I know that, but the water does come out of canals on New River further south right now to this date. And we're going to move a whole lot more water without doing any improvement downstream. I'm a little concerned on Randy. My district, you know, the Goodine kind of connects some of mine. I know this would help there, which is great. But we don't want to forget the bottom end, which is that's taking all our water going to the pumps. Because they do get over the banks. On a 4 or 5 inch rain, we getting water out of the banks of New River and Sanama. And that is a concern. So we're spending $4 million just to that point. That's, you know, a big concern of mine.
Mr. Johnny.
Yeah, we've been beating this horse for quite a while. Our district's going to benefit, and I think I added it up. At least 5 other districts and potentially 6 other districts would be impacted by this project as far as drainage improvements. And it is, as both William and Ron said, it's a drainage project. There's no beautification to be had by this. Doc, just to respond to your comment, the city of Gonzales contributes in excess of $3 million a year for drainage under a cooperative endeavor agreement, and we maintain major drainage throughout the city, and even though it's an incorporated area. So looking at the overall cost benefit, we can't put a dollar value to it, but Old Gonzales, which is in my district, and some of the west side of Gonzales, which is Travis's district, did flood in 2016. Matter of fact, it came very close to flooding in 1983, and it did flood a little bit in 2008, I think, or 2003. So, you know, a lot of folks are going to benefit from this project because it is about drainage. It's about improving drainage to get water out. I'm in favor of it. You know, we beat it to death. I mean, initially, I think the project estimates were like 7.8 or 8 point something million.
We've spent a good bit of time working jointly with Public Works to try to take it down to Toyota level of investment.
And the other thing too is I don't know if it was mentioned, but a lot of the dredge material that we're going to be removing, we've had it sampled. The bottoms have been sampled, and there's no hazardous material in it whatsoever. So we're going to potentially have 60,000 cubic yards of reusable material that the parish can use wherever it might need it. So there will be some additional benefit to having the dredge spoils available. I'm in favor of it, and I'm going to ask for your support as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Johnson.
I think like Randy and Todd mentioned with the downstream effects, but correct me if I'm wrong, with the procedures that we have in place today, Ron, on the rain events, we start those pumps earlier and pump all that down. So, and with opening this up, you're increasing the capacity of storage in the whole system,
correct? And so what you alluded to earlier, as far as the amount of water going to the pumping station will essentially be the same. And you may have an odd event every once in a while that'll come in and dump a lot of rain in a certain part of that area, but typically on major events, we're pumping that down anyway before an event comes through, correct?
That's correct, except upstream of the weir.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. When the weirs are removed, you're adding a whole bunch of storage capacity upstream of that, but the overall level, once the weir removed, is going to be even that water coming out of there now, so it's going to add to it. So you're not going to see a net necessarily gain. It's just going to be through that time with the storage coming through there. The overall volume will be, but as far as the amount of initial flow or the amount of water coming through in a rush wouldn't necessarily change, I guess is what you're trying to say earlier.
I agree with that. I do express some concerns of the same as the councilman had mentioned, is the rate of the flow. You know, if you go too much further in improving the entire upstream of that, it may be some effect. But we feel at this point, with this scope of this project, I would include in the engineering in the next phase as we look at some of that.
And so with the improvement on the banks as well as what you're talking about, would that decrease the amount of sloughing that we're seeing downstream with the water going through there of the banks from now to erosion?
There are a lot of areas that have culverts that dump out 40, 30 feet, 50 feet from the channel, and there's ditches basically from the sides of the roads to the channel, and that creates washouts all up and down there. And this scope would pipe those areas, eliminate those ditches, and improve the ability to maintain that, and also create less hazards for us washouts and stabilize the banks as well.
Which by stabilizing the banks in this 3-mile stretch will yield a net reduction in the amount of that silt that goes downstream.
Thank you.
Mr. Goulart.
Yeah, I just want to recap some history, and basically, not the oldest council member, but one of the oldest people sitting up here, is that for the city of Gonzales, that when the Follett plan and when this was developed, the city of Gonzales was very, very strong in helping us develop this plan and get this New River Martinborough pump station and its New River based on the cost-benefit ratio at that time. The largest municipality, the largest group of people within the New River Basin was in the city of Gonzales. And they were very strong in working on us getting that. And at that time, when that was done, was one of the largest single municipality, being East Ascension Parish, the eastern side of the parish, but being one of the largest municipality projects on record in the country. So the New River Basin and the Martinborough Pump Station is a very big project, and there's a lot of area. And you're right, Ron, it's flat, so it takes a while to get to the pumps. We saw plenty of time. So I'm going to go ahead and take up for the city of Gonzales that they've always paid their taxes, and we've worked, because I was one of the sandbaggers, okay? So, you know, and we have their representative right there.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I was walking up in case I needed to defend the city of Gonzales. But just in summary, I want to thank the parish, because the city and the parish work really well together on all these drainage projects. We always have, and we expect to continue that relationship. As has been mentioned already, the city does pay around $3.5 million a year into drainage, which we are grateful for the assistance we do get. In just calculating quickly the cost of the project and the mileage, about a mile, 1.5 miles, I think, is in the city. It's a 2.7-mile project. So I feel like the cost has been brought down significantly from the original cost estimate. With the contribution the city puts into the drainage tax, we would greatly appreciate your consideration of us bidding and moving forward with the project. There's numerous benefits for drainage and maintenance. I know some of those erosion issues. I'll just tell you, there's critical water lines in those slopes of the bayou. By finishing this project helps a lot of utility issues and safety issues on the edge of the road. So there are many benefits, and we appreciate your consideration of the project.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Let me help one thing here, since we are talking about old timers and everything else around here. But Gentlemen, and ladies, this is the only way, back in 2004, 2005, Highway 621, the bridge. We talk about bridges. We talk about all the obstruction along this channel. I don't see DOTD standing up and raising any of these highways, any of these bridges. So we're gonna have to start thinking of how can we improve this channel. And Ron, what was the 2 events before? You had 3 foot of water that was, you was waiting for water at the pump station. And you had, I think it was between Highway 620, I don't remember which one. I know it was all the way to Plessis, you was flooding, and you couldn't get the water to the pumps. So we have to get the water to put them to work. So, I don't know, you might add to that, but go ahead.
There's a gauge at Babin Road in the Goudin, and that gauge normally sits at around 3.3, 3.4 feet prior to any rain ever happening. That gauge is not very far from Bayou Grande South, Bayou Grande North, 621.
Correct.
We've seen it, and granted, it was a significant event, 2 inches of rain in 30, 40 minutes of time. That gauge went from 3.4 to 8+ feet.
Right.
And so that's 5 foot of water right there. And what you ended up with was inundated streets in Bayou Grande South and some in Bayou Grande North, Tiggy Duplessis, 621, all the way up to Duplessis Road, even in the Rocky Rocher ditch. All of that drains down the Goudin and out. So I will say that was significant events, but we were not able to get it lower than a 3.4 at that gauge. And we can be down to a 1 foot at Marvin Bro. You're still at 3.5 up that way.
Mr. Dawson?
Yeah, just wanted, Mr. Chairman, to, I think I'm going to be the Lone Ranger on this, looks like, but, not because, I just wanted to explain, it's not because I don't think this is a good project, but I don't like the practice of bringing a project to us of this magnitude and we not being able to quantify what the benefits are. And, no offense to the Drainage Department. We haven't asked for those in the past, but I think we should make it a practice in the future, and I will object.
Okay. With that being said, I'd like to give the administration, parish president, or I know Mr. Williams was up here, but any closing on this?
Good question. Well, like they said, we've been beating this horse to death, and if you realize this project was like 7 point something million, and we worked very hard, and the city of Gonzales does contribute. Now, Mr. Dawson, you got to realize your district in Pelican Point, when you start doing drainage work over there, it's going to be very costly. So just remember that when you vote.
I just asked to quantify what.
No problem. Well, it has never been asked before, and we can start doing that on every project. We had some records, but William couldn't dig them up. I mean, we didn't get them dug up. As soon as we get that, we will get them to you.
Mr. Sadler.
Yeah,
my question is, I'm inclined to support this, but Mr. Chairman, is there any chance in order to get these cost-benefit analysis numbers that Councilman Dawson wants, would it be a disaster if we deferred this to one more meeting, or do we need to approve this tonight? Anyone from administration, Mr. Daniel?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be a disaster, Councilman. I would say that for, just to say on the record, a cost-benefit analysis here is pretty difficult to do. I mean, it's hard to put a cost on how much erosion you're gonna help and all of that. So I'm going to suggest to you that the number that I would ultimately bring to you would be
arbitrary,
fairly arbitrary, yes, sir. In this, because I think it would be very difficult with my engineering background to absolutely say this is a number, and I think you could have several other engineers bring you, a number that would differ by maybe a magnitude. So I think it's a good project. I think that the project benefits really speak for themselves. If nothing, if nothing else, we know we're going to gain a significant amount of storage in the river. We're going to drastically decrease maintenance. I mean, it's almost impossible for us to mow and we're going to make giant leaps in controlling the erosion. So I will attempt to do a cost-benefit analysis, or I'll have smarter people do this cost-benefit analysis. But I was just hoping, given all of the benefits of this project, that we could get it approved and move on.
Thank you. The only comment I'd make about that, Mr. Chairman, is that, you know, I'm not seeking myself a conscious easing number in order to vote, especially if it, quote, could be and likely is going to be arbitrary. I mean, I heard loud and clear, what do you want? You want it on 25, 50, or 100? You know, and depending on what you do there, that number could change radically. And if it is arbitrary anyway, I guess I'm not inclined to hold this up tonight. But thank all of y'all. And I want the people to understand too, you know, if you ever sit up here, be careful what you wish for. These decisions are not easy to make. Okay, and I used to, it's funny, I sat on this commission for probably the first 5 or 6 years of my tenure in 2 election cycles, and I really didn't have anything to say. Go look at the record and you'll see that. Until we had the great flood of 2016 in August. That's an unusual thing, like Deb's trying to say, for a guy like me. But, and why? I mean, and I'll tell you why. If you go look in Wikipedia and just look up Prairieville, where it tells you how our fine area got its name, it talks about the fact that we're the highest part of Ascension Parish.
Yeah.
We're 23 feet above sea level, it says. You'd think we'd never flood. Well, every home in at least 6 or 7 subdivisions, all my neighbors and friends, off of Old Perkins Road, there's a State Highway 427 or whatever it is, I just know it as Perkins. In the backs of those subdivisions, when, you know, the meat came down and Bayou Manchac flooded and so forth, and Manchac, of course, goes to the Goudine and so forth. I'm just wondering if even some of those folks, not the ones that went pretty deep on it, that were right on it, but some of those that are 3 or 4 houses in from the back of the subdivisions, they may not have flooded. So I like this project for that reason, because no longer can I say, and if anybody takes my job, I want them to understand that drainage is now something in District 4 we have to start talking about as well. Especially as we become, hey, more and more dense, period. And boy, we all know that's happening in Prairieville. But thank you, guys.
Mr. Clewak.
Yeah, I just want to reflect back on cost-benefit ratio that within multiple projects over the past 25 years that this district and this commission has taken up, that there was glimpses, there were times when cost-benefit ratio were people were charged with doing them. But at the end of the day, with this municipality within ourselves doing 100% of our funding, they were not looked at as serious as they would be, say we were going for federal monies, all right? And, but I just believe that the magnitude of this project, as I look at the total scope and all that, I believe it's well within the dollar figure that we're looking at right now. So this time I don't have a problem with it.
Mr. Aaron.
Make a motion that we move forward with this project.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Aaron, second by Ms. Terry. Any opposition?
Wow, Bill.
Ms. Secretary, roll call. Bless your heart, and I know you're working hard down there with all these notes, so you okay?
No.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
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 Yes. With that, motion passed. Thank y'all for all the hard work on that. We'll move on to 7A, Ms. Jones.
Good evening. On January 28, 2019, the East Ascension Drainage Department received a proposal from Brian Hammett and Associates to provide construction observation services for the Savoy Road, Penny Street, Shealy Drive, and Riverside Estates Drive project. It is the recommendation of the EAD administrative staff to seek your approval and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Randy, second by Mr. Aaron. Any opposition to the motion? Not, motion passed. We're going to 7B, that's for Mr. Ron DeGear.
Thank you, Ms. Jones, for presenting that for us. Yes, 7B is approval to amend the master contract between East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District, number 1, and Timken Gear Services and Universal Plant Services Incorporated to extend substantial completion date from 208 days from the date of the identified on the notice to proceed of June 18, 2018, by additional 59 days for a total contract term period of 267 days. Said contract extension will expire on March 31st.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Clua. Any discussion?
Real
Any
quick, Ron,
Yes.
so when we go get all this finished?
We had our unit put back together last week, went through quality control testing and passed Friday. So they had to send it off to get painted. That happened Saturday. I talked with Ms. Gail at Philly Gear today. They should be lining up tomorrow or the next day with contact. They're trying to line up a crane and get it secure with all the construction going on. They're hard to find right now. So
Yes,
once
sir.
we get a crane date, we will then be mobilizing within the next 2 weeks, hopefully pending a crane available.
Yep. I couldn't, I'll get you a crane. Talk to me after the meeting.
Appreciate
I couldn't
it.
find an air compressor this weekend. It's busy.
Well, that's the only thing that we would see would create a little obstacle, but other than that, we're excited to hopefully get that pump back up.
With no discussion, no opposition, motion passed. All right, number 8, acceptance of staff recommendation. That's on the Lamar, is that Joey?
Yes, this is a acceptance for staff's recommendation to present to full council the Unified Development Code, Chapter 9.5, Flood Damage Prevention D ordinance that's required as per the LOMR by FEMA. This was presented before where it showed all of the corrections or changes that were made to the document. Now it's in a form that can formally be sent to council for approval. And it is required for the LOMRs to be official by FEMA.
Moved by Mr. Todd, second by Mr. Johnny. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passed. Number 9, discussion. Joey?
This is just an update on the letters that we have sent out and the letters we will send out to inform people who are adversely affected by this LOMR. We've sent out, there was 130, it was about 135 different addresses that were affected. Our staff researched that and came up with the property owners. We mailed letters last week to all of those property owners. It ended up being 55 different people that owned those different addresses. We will shortly send out to all of those occupants. So, because they are affected also, those people that want to get flood insurance are affected, so they're going to be sent letters also. So we're continuing. We also have, I spoke with Martin McConnell. He's already put a message on Ascension 21. He has plans to put all of the other media avenues that the parish has, including Facebook and the other entities, the other parts that I'm not all that familiar with, but Channel 21, and he may actually have a presentation on Channel 21. So that's going on. We will write letters to, like I said, to the occupants of all of the people affected. We will also do that for people in the floodway.
Mr. Travis?
I'm assuming we did send it off via certified mail.
No, we did not. We just sent regular letters it was, we may not, I mean, we're going to get back as normal. I did talk to the postmaster at Gonzales. If we do not have a person that receives that letter, we'll get that letter back, and then we can pursue it that way to make sure that we did get a letter in their hands.
I thought we had initially discussed sending them all out certified.
Councilman, we looked at doing that, and we decided that the cost of doing it really didn't justify the benefits. So what we decided to do was put ads in the paper and put it on Channel 21. And the other thing that we did was, instead of just sending it to just the homes, if there was a piece of property in that floodway, we sent it to the person. I mean, even if it was only like the corner of their property, we sent it to them. We tried to identify both the landowners and anybody that might be staying there as well.
How many letters did we mail out?
55 so far, and we have 135 ready to go.
So roughly 200?
Yes.
Okay, so how much was a certified per envelope would it be?
Roughly about $7.
For one certified letter?
Mm-hmm.
The prices went up?
Yeah, I think it's $6.95 right now for a certified return receipt.
Okay, how much was the ads? The ads.
Pardon?
Ads normally like
How much
50.
on the ads?
Normally ads are $50, $100.
That's for one-time run or two-time run?
Just depends on the publication, really.
Wait till we get to 13.
So how much were the ads again?
Normally $50 per ad. with the
Well, let me
normal
just ask
ad
this,
is.
how much did we spend on advertisement?
I can't answer that question. I don't know who did it. I don't even know if the ads ran yet.
So roughly, it would have been like $1,400 to send out these letters? Give or take?
Yeah.
And $6.95 for 200 letters?
I have to defer to administration on the amount of letters and everything. I just tell you how much the postage was on it.
We are going to send more letters because that does not include those in the floodway.
So we're going to send out over 400 letters, Councilman.
Okay, over 400. $2,800.
And Councilman Turner, just to let you know too, this has all been noticed by FEMA already, and they've done all their notice requirements. So everything that y'all are doing at the parish level is extra and not actually a requirement of FEMA for these low marks.
Yeah, but I feel like we should do extra.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
Make
and just
sure,
wanted to
yeah.
let you know that there's no obligation on behalf of the parish to do any of it.
Well, I understand we may not have an obligation, but once again, I think we should notify them. Are we gonna have any type of meetings to inform them, or are we just sending letters?
We agree with you that we should go above and beyond notify them, but we just didn't think that a certified letter would be the best way to do it. We wanted to put ads in the paper. We wanted to do it on Channel 21. So we thought that would reach more people than spending the money on a certified letter.
And what about, are we gonna do any meetings?
At this point, I don't know that we had planned on any meetings, but we certainly can if that's what you would like us to do.
I think it would just help, you know.
I think, yeah, I 100% agree. The more communication, the better.
Yeah. So we'd like to at least try to set up some type of meeting, at least some type of central location.
Okay.
Mr. Kenner, President?
Councilman, would you like, we only got, well, there's more than 2 districts. That's yours and Bill Dawson's Sorrento, right, Bill?
I don't know who else besides
And
mine, Travis.
so would y'all want, we could set up 2 meetings if that's what you want. Just tell us where you want them at and when.
Yeah, we're gonna try at least do one. Do one. Try to get them together.
Okay, get with y'all's schedules and let us know. Let me or Ken know, and we'll set it all up.
Go ahead, Ken.
Just real quick, I do want to add that we did meet to make sure that we tried to inform everyone that was impacted. When initially we were sending the letters out just to the property owners, we realized they only had 50 property owners, but they may have been the property owners may have owned a lot of land and a lot of parcels of property. So we made sure that we re-looked at it and we sent letters to everyone that may had a trailer or some structure on that property to make sure they were out. We even had a discussion that if there was some reason why we felt that they somehow couldn't get a letter, that we were not above going to the house and make sure one was delivered. Because I think that we caught it very clearly that this body wanted to make sure that everybody was informed that they could be impacted by the situations that happened with the change in Lowmore. So that was taken very seriously. And we will also schedule the other meetings as well to make sure that as many people we can get out there that know, and they will have every chance to understand the impact.
And Lamar-Dixon area would be a good location. That's kind of where the majority of the people that are affected are at. So that would be a good location.
Mr. Clark, you have something?
Just for the general public, Joey, if they're impacted, that means they had a change. Or they had a change from not being in the flood zone in a flood zone. What's your definition of impact?
Correct, just that. Whenever they went from an X to an AE. So, it's those people that went from an X to an AE. We're also going to notify those people that are in that floodway.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are affected also.
And I think y'all answered some earlier questions based on what Bill and Travis had asked, that you didn't just cover houses with addresses, you covered landowners.
Correct.
I mean, a large block of land might not even have a house, and it was impacted, negatively impacted, and so you
That's
found
right.
the landowner and you sent them a letter.
Yes.
Or get them a letter.
Now, we will give them a
Or
letter.
are you going to invite them to a meeting?
We'll certainly invite them to a meeting also.
That same list is going to be who's invited to the meeting, basically.
Yeah, now the
Do you
letter
see
that we've sent out and we will be sending out doesn't mention a meeting, but we can.
I'm talking about when the meeting comes, the notice of the meeting, or how are you going to notify the folks on the meeting?
We could.
I like to dig in the ditches right now, you might not have it figured out yet.
Yeah.
It just came up.
If there's, if we can do that by media, I mean, otherwise we'd be sending
Send
a
another
set of
letter out
letters
twice.
out to those 400
Right.
people.
Appreciate that. Mr. Bill Dawson?
I just wanted to clarify, Joey, the consequences of this are one of the results of my understanding that these people that are moving from the X to the AE, if they get insurance now, then they will be grandfathered in when they get in a change of classification. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's.
So that's the impetus for this, is to encourage people, if you don't have insurance, go out and buy it, because the price of it's gonna go up.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was kind of pushing on, you really need to do whatever you got to do to get a hold of these people, and prove that you got a hold of them.
Certified.
Anything else, Mr. Turner?
We need to hire a legal firm to take care of that.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. President.
I'm going to talk to Rick Weber tomorrow. I think we can also do a robocall to, if DPW gives us all the addresses.
Sure. All right, appreciate, any other discussion on that? If not, thank you, Joe, for bringing that. We're going to number 10, the approval to amend the master contract. Ron?
Yes, we're moving to amend the master contract professional service of roadside ditch maintenance between on-grade construction Decision Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 1, add an additional $500,000 to the current contract total of $750,000, bringing the total contract to $1.25 million, and authorize parish president to sign any and all documents.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Kluart. Discussion?
Discussion. Ron, what is this contract, of course, is $1.25 million now, and now you're doing a good, you're doing a good job, I apologize, so, has it knocked down the backlog of work orders? That's what I want to know. You brought it-
Roadside ditches, yes, sir.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir. We are working toward a new way of doing things. If we get these things knocked out, I told you earlier that we're trying to take and capitalize on things we can turn over quickly.
Good deal.
We are trying to knock this out. I don't want to say things and
No, I
overpromise and
understand.
underdeliver, but my goal in that is to eliminate these and have a project where when somebody calls in for a ditch to be dug, we go dig the ditch.
Right.
And then in addition to that, possibly utilizing this type of work to do proactive work.
Right.
We get on the low end of the system and dig going up. So that's my goal in mind.
Good deal.
It's the start of something new, and I think working in conjunction with our crews, and we're seeing how they work a lot more now. And we're making moves to kind of mirror that, and hopefully
I just want to emphasize that the work you've done in the Santa Monica District and District 6 has been great. And the things that these guys run into, they run into all kind of things that were buried in that ditch.
That's on the road, sir. Off-road is 3 times more.
Yeah, I know what off-road is, but on the road, we're running into all kind of things that tie into the ditch, buried in the ditch.
We appreciate the compliments. Thank you.
And because I know the calls late at night that I get, you get it as soon as I get it, and then you take care of it. But the fact is that we've had every kind of water pipe, sewer line, anything possible. The ditch was a good place to run it 100 years ago, you know, and now we're digging it up.
Mr. Aaron?
Ron, you kind of alluded to this before, but about getting into a process where we're being proactive. And that's something I know several of us have talked about before, is to a point where we can create, whether it be quadrants, districts, something in the parish, that when people call up, we're able to tell them that, no, your ditch is going to be done on this date, estimated on, give them an estimated date instead of having to respond to calls. So where we're constantly working our roadside ditches just eternally. I mean, are we heading towards that direction?
We've already got some of that implemented in our workflow structure and the work order system. We've developed the quadrants in the parish, the work zones, so to say. And we are working with South Central to do away with the cartograph system and hopefully get a lot more features than we currently have. So going along with what you're saying, absolutely. That's the mindset that we've always been trying to work towards. We've got the workflows established. If we could just get on top of this backlog of stuff that we have in front of us, I think that we would be able to map out an area where we're at, projected of here we are today, here's where we're planning to go, and here's where we went yesterday. It's a lot of coordination and documentation in the work order system to do that. So it'll take a lot of training on staff to get them to be able to go through all of those steps. And in the upcoming implementation of South Central, that is one of the features that we are trying to get reports brought to you guys in that effect. But I will caution you, I don't feel like it is that simple in the off-road drainage department. But everything that we can possibly do that to and apply it to, I will certainly try to do that.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the master contract? When we finish discussion, any objection? Motion passed. Number 11, approval of substantial completion. Mr. Ron?
Yes, sir. Substantial completion approval for Lewis White Road Bridge repair. All work has been completed and suitable for acceptance by the parish.
Moved by Mr. Lambert, second by Mr. Johnny. Discussion? Opposition? None, motion passed. Number 12, another one.
Approval for substantial completion of Norwood Road Bridge repair. All work is completed and is suitable for acceptance.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Tyler Lambert, second by Mr. Kluwat. Discussion? Any opposition? None, motion passed. Number 13, discussion. Mr. Ron?
Yes, sir. Bringing up discussion for bid specification development for drainage repair at 40611 Pelican Point Parkway. Give you guys a brief overview of this. In Pelican Point, we've got...
Do we do a cost benefit on this?
Yeah, that's what I was My question was going to be the same thing.
Is it in the budget? Is it in the budget?
I give up.
You knew that was coming.
I knew it was coming.
Have to get the homeowners
Ron,
association.
before you were rudely interrupted.
Ben Frederick Road to look over that.
Yeah. So, as we were getting to there's several issues in Pelican Point with drainage, mainly the cross drainage within Pelican Point. We took a high-end look at the subdivision, and there's roughly 40 cross drains within Pelican Point that are a concern. I wouldn't say that you need to address all of them today, but there are some that are in very poor condition, and it's recommendation that we look at one. The worst one in Pelican Point at this address is, we've had a meeting with the HOA and Councilman Dawson, and that's sort of what we had talked about doing. So we didn't want to do that
Bill?
without coming to you guys.
I move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Bill,
Maybe he might not get a second.
Did I hear you, Mr. Terry? Second by Mr. Terry. Discussion, Mr. Goulart.
So if you got 40 of them, you know, this is gonna be a multi-million-dollar project by the time you do 40 of them.
That's why we want to do one and put a number on it, do that cost-benefit analysis, and y'all make the call after this.
Well, the baby number on $1 million is 25,000, so you ain't gonna do it for 25,000. You're gonna be about 4 times that much.
Well, we'll bring you a recommendation back before we do anything.
Man, who built that place?
What a deal.
Yep.
I don't know, but
We're not
it
gonna
wasn't
get no
me.
finger pointing tonight. We got enough of that. Mr. Johnson?
No, just one comment on that. I
Yeah.
would, I think that not all 40 may not need to be repaired, that, maybe some of those we can monitor and see if the subsidence has, maybe slowed down enough. So I don't want to scare people into think we got to go in there and tear out 40 of them. It could be some cases, and when I look at them, I don't see, certainly you picked out the worst one, but I don't see, the rest, a large majority of the rest of them being that bad, that if we could set up a monitoring system and see what happens to them. But I look forward to what happens when you dig up the first one and see what, results of that are.
Well, we've dug up in the past, and, there's some construction practices that probably weren't followed to best practices. But this one is going to be difficult for not only because of the problem it has, but because of the logistics of it being near the golf course, being the only way in and out of part of the subdivision. So, that's why this one is really so difficult.
Thank you.
What sort of problems is it causing? I mean, is this just bumpy roads, or we having drainage problems?
Well, it starts off as a pothole. They'll call about a pothole, and our guys will respond, immediately go patch it, but then it comes repetitive. And then over time, you start looking at the root cause of what's causing the pothole. And then you starting to get, in Pelican Point, you've got cross drains that are designed to stay full water. And so what we thinking is going on is saturation of the road base, deterioration of not sealed, watertight seals in the pipe. It could be a number of things, but you're seeing the road fail because of the drainage underneath the road. So this particular area is roughly 80, 100 feet of failure of road base because of a saturated road base from the pipes. And we've got to get bid specifications developed, and as you said, the logistics, you got school traffic, residential traffic, the golf course, cart path goes through the work zone. So it's not as easy as just going to dig it up and fix it. So we really need to cover our tracks.
There's only one way in and one way out at that point, so it's going to be difficult.
And I understand that, and we've talked about this before, though, but, I've got some people in my district that when on a normal rain, they can't leave their house. They literally cannot back out of their driveway because their vehicle will be underwater. And it's been like this for 10 years.
Well, if this road fails, Councilman, there's going to be a bunch of people that won't be able to get
I understand that, but we've got somebody that's been like this for 10 years, and they're still sitting there.
And we're trying to address all of them.
Okay.
Your roads are your secondary drainage.
Yeah, Ron, have y'all addressed the technology of the mechanical liner? I mean, I don't know.
Yes, sir. That'll certainly be a factor that may be a
That may be
solution to
feasible
do
for
that.
that.
Absolutely. We've actually used a lot of that in several locations in the parish.
Thank you.
All right, we have Mr. Lambert.
And just to kind of get with Aaron, most subdivisions are built today where your secondary drainage is your highways,
Yes.
Well, they do sub-drainage first, and then your secondary drainage is the streets. They drop the elevation of your streets.
I agree 100% with that, but Mr. Aaron, I'm aware of where you're referring to, and our subdivision maintenance program is a little off topic, but we're certainly going to look into that to put it into that program.
I know we are. Thank you.
Mr. Terry, you had something?
No.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
We have a motion second, discussion. Any opposition to the motion? Not, motion passed.
That was quick, Chairman.
I appreciate that. Number 14, it's an authorization, Joey?
The authorization to extend and amend the contract between between HNTB and East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 1 to August the 7th, 2019 for floodplain management with the original contract amount of $400,000, remaining balance of $135,598.56.
Move to extend.
Second.
Yeah, you finished?
Sure.
Okay, we had a speaker, I'm sorry.
No, we have a speaker.
Mr. Chase Malonson, you can come up now.
How y'all doing? Good evening. I just have a few questions and concerns about the extension. We've already paid them a couple $100,000, almost 300, I believe, to do the field study and the floodplain management. We've had those results for 8-9 months now. We haven't done anything with them. We've just kind of been dribbling them back and forth between here, full council, going to strategic planning, I believe, in a few weeks. So I'm just trying to understand why we want to extend and possibly spend any more money when we haven't even begun to utilize what we've already spent money on. So I'm just curious if we actually have any plans for this, or is it just another study? I'm all for studies if they have some results come out, but we haven't had any results out of this money, specifically with this contract. So I just wanted to raise that concern and maybe hear any thoughts, if there's a reason why we should keep spending money on a study that we've had the results back for about 8 months now. Thank you.
Back up, Ron.
Do you all want me to address that?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so as Doc alluded to earlier, some of the decisions that you guys are faced are pretty tough and strenuous, and the facts are sometimes a lot of research involved. So the board's elected to bring this to strategic planning, but they don't have a contract currently. So if you want to continue to utilize HNTB to support any questions or concern, you need to renew their contract at this term to where you can still utilize them to assist the parish in any way that we need them to moving forward, whatever the wishes may be.
Appreciate it. William?
And just to be clear, we're not putting any additional money in this contract. We're only extending the time of the contract. So there is unfinished business, and so we just want to be able to utilize our experts to help answer those difficult questions.
Discussion, Mr.
Yeah, well, I think you just answered it right at the end when I put my hand up. So this isn't, so the public understands as well, too. Not that we're going to be paying HNTB a single dime more, but that they'll be able to come on, I believe, the meeting scheduled on the 18th for strategic planning and testify. I know it's been moved several times. I may be off by a day.
I think it's more towards the end of the month.
Yeah.
27th.
No, it's on the 18th now.
Oh, it is on the 18th? Okay. But important to the discussion, whenever it is, they can now, because I know.
Obviously, we don't know when the next meeting is.
Has asked by emails that the public can't see and all behind the scenes, unless they do a public record request, that they appear there. So they're saying they won't come unless.
No, let's just be clear. They're not saying that they won't come because they're here to help serve the parish. But they would just like to come under the auspices of having a contract if they, when they do show up, so that they can they can actually be compensated for coming over here.
So they can show billable hours.
Well, they're in the business to make money, Councilman.
No, I'm just asking a question. I'm not against paying anybody for doing anything that they do.
I promise you they would show up.
I believe legal counsel, if he were here tonight, he'd say, Doc, sadly, I don't work for nothing.
They would definitely show up, but I think it's only fair that if they show up, that we pay them, and if y'all ask for additional work to be done, that we compensate them for that work as well.
Okay, just so we understand it. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussions? Mr. Todd?
Yeah, the floodplain management plan, is it complete with them? Yes. You said they had some more work to do on it. I thought it was ready to present to the council.
If y'all had any questions that caused them to do additional work.
I thought you said they had some more work available that they needed to do.
No, sir.
But the plan is complete as we said.
Not for the ordinances portion of that. There was additional tasks to that contract, but for what they've been asked to do so far, they're done.
Okay, and they're waiting on us to move forward.
Yes, sir.
Well, and Councilman, just to refresh you a little bit, I think one of the holdups on that is I think y'all may be waiting on that LSU study that's supposed to be looking further into the field thing. That kind of ties together, so. Just letting you know, that's probably, that was one of the reasons that y'all were kind of holding off on this thing, because this came in front of y'all in October or November, and y'all only did a 2-month extension, so now it's just to get a longer extension, so we don't have to come back every 2 months. It's not adding any more dollar value to the contract.
Thank you, Cody.
Yeah, and to be further clear, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ron and everybody else. So on the 18th, in front of strategic planning, I don't chair that anymore, but I'm still a member, so I want to be sure I'm prepared. We're just going to be discussing HNTB's, not all of their recommendations on floodplain management, but at least what they might be recommending relative to fill and some of the issues I heard at the Donaldsonville meeting. And in fact, we are not going to be considering, correct me if I'm wrong, drainage impact study recommendations that HNTB has also been fully paid for, and they fully have gotten to that point.
They looked at all our ordinances, Councilman, and made some recommendations to change the ordinances based on limiting to 3 foot of fill, and rewrote all the ordinances on that. So that's where, and so we stopped at that point. LSU came in, so we're kind of at.
And that's what we're going to be talking about on the 18th, exclusively.
I'm not sure what, I haven't.
I realize you can't predict what this council's going to do.
I haven't seen the exact agenda item, and y'all are free to talk about mostly anything you like.
I understand that as well. I'm just trying to prepare myself to the whole
But
shooting match, which is very voluminous versus, I mean, the issue I believe that started with Mr. Lawler, who's being quiet over here right now, at least maybe temporarily, had to do with the moratorium as it related to fill. So I assume that that's what we're doing, as it might relate to the courthouse, as it might relate to the reasons we pulled it before.
And you may have questions.
It might relate to
HNTB.
LSU study, it was mentioned earlier, and stuff like that.
But the work that HNTB has done, that they have completed, is the cleaning up of all the ordinances based on limiting it to 3 feet of fill.
And that will be Miss Melissa will appear.
Right, and she had a doctor's appointment, that's why she couldn't be here tonight, but otherwise she would have been here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ken Dawson.
Yes, just real quick, just to add something. We are going to be discussing those items that Councilman Sally referred to just a moment ago. We had some discussions today with Jerome and with the chairman of strategic planning to make sure that all the bases were covered, and we're all working to make sure all those things are handled.
Appreciate it. Okay, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? Not. Motion passed. All right, we have another authorization, Ron.
Yes, sir. Authorization to extend and amend the contract, number 3, to contract for professional engineering service between HNTB and East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage District Number 1 for February 1st, 2019 to November 10th, 2019 for levy certification, including engineering fees and remaining balance of $202,145.88 for a new contract term, and authorize parish president to sign any and all documents pertaining to said contract. No, this is the contract that involves both the Lomer task order and the 1.2 billion grant projects. And it was cut short on the amendment, same as floodplain, so we're looking to extend it. They don't have a contract.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
By Mr. Todd, second by Mr. Terry. Discussion. Mr. Cluett.
Ron, what's the total value of this contract?
That one was 3.3 million originally.
Any other discussion? Mr. Bill.
Again, this is extension of calendar time only.
Yes, sir. No more
Right.
money. It's just to continue, elected to, I think it was January 31st, cut the contract off. And so they won't be able to work anymore under a contract if we don't extend.
So I think there was just a clarification. We were supposed to have those HUD rules in December, and that's why we cut this off. And
Right.
we still don't have the HUD rules. Never imagine that, but
Yes,
so,
sir.
you know, that's one of the causes here.
I don't want to get too much into it without H&TB being here to talk about it, but they will be updated at the next meeting on that.
Appreciate that. We have a motion. Second. Any other discussion? If not, motion passed. Number 16. Mr. Aaron. Second by Mr. Johnny. We adjourn.